particularly excited about today's interview because it touches on a design approach that most of our audience has probably never heard of. It's called design thinking, and what it is a problem-solving approach that emphasizes empathy, collaboration, and experimentation. It's an approach that is very human-centric, so it focuses on what the end user actually wants and needs. Design thinking is a practice that can be adapted to any industry and challenge, from product development to greater organizational change. Our guest today is Olivia O'Connor, the founder and chief experience officer at the organization Live by Design. Live by Design uses design thinking to help companies elevate their customer and employee experience to increase brand loyalty and staff retention. We just know this interview is going to be full of value, so a big welcome to you, Liv. Yay!
Yeah. Thank you for having me. That is such an awesome intro.
I hope I touched on everything and I explained it well, that what
Nailed
you
it.
do.
Absolutely. Great.
It's fantastic.
I love it. So we always like to start at the beginning, and we're from our LinkedIn stalking. We know that you have a marketing background with 6 years at Lion. What got you into marketing?
Marketing, I've loved, when I was at uni, loved business, loved the idea of strategy, but I also wanted something a little bit creative. So I originally started doing media studies, and I was like, okay, this is too creative. I probably won't get a job at the end of this. So I need something that in the business world that's a little bit practical, but also a bit creative. Knowing now that actually it wouldn't have mattered what I'd studied. It could have been finance, could have been accounting, anywhere, any role you can be creative in. But at that time, marketing kind of really resonated with me. And so, kind of went down that path, and then spent 18 years in marketing roles.
That's amazing. It's obviously your passion for 18 years. Do you have a particular role that was your favourite that comes to mind?
Absolutely. I had a couple of really great roles, and all I can say before I talk about the companies that was for, the roles were my favourite because of the people that I worked with within those roles. So initially attracted to Lion, I mean, I felt like I'd kind of hit the jackpot. You're working with brands like Tui's Extra Dry, Hans Super Dry, Heineken, Corona. So marketing wise, I actually started as a sales in a sales role in that industry, and then moved back into marketing. And like I said, I thought I had hit the jackpot from a marketing perspective, but really where I hit the jackpot was just the people that I worked with. Lion had gone through about a decade, I think, before I had joined, of really transforming their culture. And I hate the word transforming because, 10 years is, it's in reality of how long it takes to really impact and turn a culture around. And they just were very people focused. So it was just always so good. There was lots of supports, etc. And that's really, at the end of the day, that's what made the job great. It was also good that when you spoke to people at barbecues, etc., you'd be like, okay, you could have some decent beer conversations as well.
Love it.
And I knew the ins and the backstories to most of it. But yeah, that was definitely, and I think I learned so much at that time, and that's where design thinking, the seed was there, but I didn't know what design thinking was, had no idea. And it wasn't until later, until I'd left Lion, I realized, I've been doing that this whole time that I'd been working there. So I just learned so much in that period of time because of just the role and the people that I worked with.
That's brilliant. I think I definitely agree that people can make or break a job.
Yeah.
And as a job evolves, or maybe a team evolves, the job isn't as nice anymore. I know I've experienced that.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, I have experienced the whole other side. I was so lucky to work in a really flourishing culture and environment. And then it can't last forever. Eventually you moved on to other roles and saw the other side. And I just went, wow, how can people work in these environments? And they'd been working at, this one particular place. One guy had been working there 20 years and never had another job. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is ultimately the worst environment I've ever experienced. And people just, you you do what you do. People just kind of sometimes accept it and just keep pushing through.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy.
It is, absolutely. Especially, I always think, because something that's come to me is that, if you've got a good work life, you bring that home with you, and it tends to help you flourish as a human being. You spend so much time at work, and so the fact that some people just push through with a miserable work life is, it's, I mean, sometimes you have to, no doubt. Sometimes you have to do it. But if you've got a choice, why would you? And if you're a leader, if you could change it,
Yes.
why wouldn't you try,
Yeah. No, I completely agree. So further from that, you've obviously had some of your lovely roles that you've had, like Lion. What are some of the greatest lessons or strategies that you've learned from those marketing roles that have helped you deliver at Live by Design?
Yeah, great question. I feel like it has been building blocks. I didn't know it at the time, but some certain things stood out to me that didn't make sense. And I desperately wanted to be really good at what I did. But some of the things I was like, why are we doing this? And I'll give you some examples in a second. But it wasn't until later that I realized that I was kind of heading towards almost getting to that point of I think there's a better way of doing this and forming Live by Design. But I had to kind of stop and reflect. So a lot of the brands that I dealt with, what I found is in particular big brands, they got more and more disconnected from the consumer. And when that happens, so for example, it's this stepping point of, okay, you hire a marketing person, that marketing person outsources the creative to an agency. You might have a 60-minute meeting, etc. But the agency doesn't really have any contact or knowledge of what the consumer is. You're going off a lot of data, which is in the past, and it doesn't actually give you too much of an indication of what's heading into the future. So that's where I found most of the stuff that I was dealing with didn't make sense. So, for example, we would have Tui's Extra Dry was a perfect example of head office. All the states are very different in terms of consumers. We would get promotions that were targeting, 24-year-olds, let's just say 18 to 24-year-olds. And I was like, this just doesn't make sense. So you'd easily just go sit into a liquor store and see who the consumer was. They were tradies. They were, 3:00 on a Friday. They were there loading up for the toolbox meeting or whatever it happened to be. And so there was this huge disconnect. And that's where, they were like, okay, if you think you can improve it, the brand was free falling. It was in 25% decline. In fast-moving consumer goods, once you're there, there's no real return ever. That's the end of the life cycle for that particular brand. But we got a budget and we localized it. We were like, okay, let's talk to tradies. Let's do the real unsexy stuff of some radio ads and a ute and a jet ski and just see how it goes. And I got all this I would sit down with the sales team. I'd go, okay, I need 3 volunteers. Can we just nut this out? Can we just talk about what do you think would light a fire? And then we talk about the trades. How do we get the trades excited about this rather than, 16 other promotions that they've got running in the store? So I kind of took this 2-pronged approach of being consumer focused, but also realizing that my success relied on the sales guys and their relationships with the the liquor store owners and getting it activated and the bars, etc. And so they were super excited because it was their promotion. It wasn't mine. I just was the coordinator, the conduit of it. And it went into 2% growth over 6 weeks, which is just unheard of. It was just phenomenal. So things like that. But traditionally, I would compare that and say Han Superdry. So they were trying to get they had a bit of an identity crisis. They had a really strong brand and it kind of went askew. And they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on focus groups where they went around to each state. And so I was lucky enough to be involved in that. And I'm sitting behind this one-way glass and we're giving, these 25 to 30-year-old blokes some beer and we're asking them, what does this mean to you as a brand? You know, how do you identify with this? And they'd ask questions like, what animal would you relate to Hans Zuber? One's like a squirrel, a dolphin, a Labrador, a skunk. And I was like, oh man, I know there's theory behind it behind formal market research, but this just did not sit well with me. It just didn't make sense. I was like, we're paying an absolute fortune for this. We're giving them beer. They're going to say whatever we want.
Yeah. Free beer, sure.
Free beer, exactly. And then I got kind of what was called NPD. So there's a lot of acronyms in the liquor world. And that was new product development. So anything that was new and innovative I got, which was always tough because selling a new product is a lot harder than increasing brand awareness and just taking orders of an existing strong brand. So with that, I got this brand called Tap King. I'm not sure if you remember it. It's a little while ago. They had what was his name? Oh gosh, Hello, the guy that it'll come to me. Anyway, it was a in fridge. Lionel Richie was in the ad.
Oh, really?
That would have been cool.
And he was on the piano singing, you know, hello, you're the one I'm looking for. And you open it up and there's this Tap King unit in the fridge. So this was really innovative. And Lion had really recognized that being first to market was a big thing. So with the low carb, that it took them years to pitch on to Pure Blonde. And so they really wanted to be first to market with this kind of innovation that was it was kind of like a draft system, at-home draft system. Many of them came out. But what happened was they went big, they went hard, they went fast. They spent a lot of money investing in this. And we rolled it out to every single liquor store in WA. And they ran every beer through this. So everything from Forex Gold to Heineken to then up to, you know, your James Squires and things. All completely different consumers. Mm-hmm. So instead of keeping it tight, they went mass market and it flopped. It took a few years, but it cost them a heck of a lot of money. And what I always compare that to is Little Creatures. So we also had Little Creatures. And if they were bringing out something new, it would be a couple of blokes at the back of the warehouse packing up, you know, a carton of beer with a mixed 6-pack, right? And they're like, well, we don't know if it's going to work. Let's put 4 different beers in one carton and see if it works. So they put it together themselves. They did it small. They started in Fremantle and then it got more popular. And then every year it would sell out. But what that teaches me is like sometimes you just got to keep things small and test them before you know and keep close to the consumer, because the further back and the bigger and the more money that you get attached by, the more risky it is. And it's also really disheartening for all the efforts of the people involved in those organisations in getting it out. So the sales team, you know, all of that stuff. There's just so much waste and energy. If you can just start small and really figure out, okay, defining what it is, what problem you're trying to solve and how to go to market, bigger's not always better.
Yeah,
that's so valuable for any size business.
A lot of examples there.
That's great. That's what we want, and I think it's relatable because I can think of a couple of businesses that it could, basically relate to that I've dealt with. I'm like, start small.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I worked for my last role. I worked for a tech company. And, you know, people, they kept pre-selling themselves. So they're the global brand all of a sudden, you know, and they've just sold something to New Zealand or one client in China, but they're global now. And they develop, you know, these landing pages that would make them look like the biggest organization you've ever seen, but there was really only, you know, 40 people working there. And what I always think is like people see through that, like it just like there's nothing wrong with, there's so much strength in just being and telling the truth through your branding, because I think people are so onto it now. We're all consumers, we're all savvy, we're all looking for scams all the time. So build the trust, like just build the trust and be truthful. There's such value in that.
Yeah, 100%. And Wow, I just love all your examples that you gave. It sounds like you've got such a great wealth of knowledge over that experience that you've had. So now making a little bit of a transition. So with Live by Design, you've been in the business for over 4 years now.
Yes.
So how did that transition take, and what made you decide, I'm going to do Live by Design?
Yeah, it was so I'd changed roles. I was in the not-for-profit sector, and decided I was kind of headhunted by someone and went, I've got 2 daycare bills, a bit of extra money is always going to be good. So I sold my soul, literally. Within 3 hours of working in that job, I knew I'd made a vital error. It was not the place for me, for so many reasons. And I just kind of took stock and went, right, okay, what do I do from here? Do I jump on Seek and grab another job, or can I really just learn from this experience? Because this is probably one of the most challenging environments I've worked in. Can I kind of be resilient enough to stick with it and plan my next steps? And the more I thought about it, the more my roles in marketing were becoming restrictive to the marketing role. And I wanted to do more than that. So the things like engaging the sales team, for example, back at Lion, like that was the stuff that really, I would walk away from that so energized, really helping the whole organization collaborate. And so at Lion, they gave me the freedom to do that. I would often be doing presentations and workshops, and like it was just so thoroughly enjoyable. Yet any marketing role I'd had after that, it was kind of like, these are your tactical roles. You get bogged down in the day-to-day. And then when I did try and do a workshop, the CEO pulled me aside and said, look, listen, these workshops you're doing, gathering people's ideas, he goes, you need to learn that there's only one person in these 4 walls that the ideas matter, and that's mine. So get back to it and get out there and start marketing us. And I was like, okay. So I just took a breath and went, I already knew that was not the place for me, but now I really knew, it almost was like, now I really know what I want to do. It's what you've just said I can't do. So it did kind of, that's cut off of like, stop doing what you're doing. I went, okay, this really is, how can I do this more often? And then so I'd uncovered design thinking, and I was like, okay, design thinking, let's totally run with that. But the more I talked to, CEOs and leaders, I was like, design thinking is great. But what I used to find was I'd start talking about the 5 stages of design thinking, and they'd kind of glaze over. Like it's 2 steps too much. Yeah. So what I started talking about was more about, designing experiences for customers and designing experiences for your employees. And it's all using the methodology of design thinking. And then I met some really great consultants who do lean and agile. And I was like, well, this is all kind of a nice process that all fits in and molds in within each other. And I was like, that's the work I want to do. So, I had a chat with hubby that night, and we'd worked on it, and I was like, take my time, do my website. I've just got to do it. And then launched, and it was super scary. And I was like, well, what if I don't get any customers and clients? Like, this is, I think it's a great idea. I think what I do is really good, but until I get in front of people and they've experienced what I deliver, how are they going to know? So then it became that whole self-marketing challenge, which I think a lot of small business owners have, because it's often either themselves or, themselves and a business partner or a very small team. So it was really just like, okay, let's just get out and do it and try some things. And if it fails, then there's always Seek. I can always jump on, and change my LinkedIn profile. That takes 2 minutes. But would I be happy just keep doing what I'm doing, or do I just try something and give it a shot? And so I did, and had some great conversations and just ran with it from there. Got a first few clients and done.
Yay.
I love that.
That's cool. Did you find that the transition from like the marketing to design thinking and experience design and management, quite fluid. And my next question is, did you find that it's harder to explain to sort of, the businesses that you're dealing with what it is that you do?
Yes, yeah, I think, and that's been the biggest struggle, because, design thinking is applicable to every organization, every industry. If you've got human beings in the organization, it's relevant. So it's like, well, how do you focus on what you're going to do? And when I launched, I think I didn't want to let all my great marketing experience go. And so I was kind of using this hybrid of implementing design thinking within marketing and strategy, and how do you engage people and the team in a process like design thinking without telling them that it's design thinking, but actually talk about, okay, here's the objective of what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to get really clear on us as a brand, us as a team. And then so I would call, creative workshops or a branding workshop, or we'd even talk about, in one of my clients was a resource client. And so it started being, who are we, as a brand in terms of us versus competitors.
Mm-hmm.
But then they had a safety issue. And I was like, oh, actually, safety really ties in with the brand, because they're one of the safest providers. So we're like, let's switch this and go, right, it's an emergency for starters, but how do we get this message out that safety is part of the brand and leads that? And in resources, I mean, that's a hot button. Safety is first and foremost. It costs millions of dollars to do a shutdown, so they cannot have any risk on site. So it kind of morphs, and then I kind of felt, once I got there, I started talking more around collaboration and creativity and workshops and things like that. And I mean, design thinking is definitely more. There's more awareness now than there ever was. But people just don't know how to get started, and I totally get it, because it's this 5-step process, and it's got prototype as the fourth one, which totally annihilates people's prototype. What's that? But when you explain it in a process or a problem that they're trying to solve, it makes sense. So and also not every step in the design thinking process is going to be relevant to every project. So people might be already, a year into a project, or they might be at the very beginning. So it all depends on what the problem is. I just focus on problem and the solution, and then how we do it.
That's cool. And so how would you describe CX and EX as terms?
Yeah. So it's customer experience. And how I define that is, what is the experience that customers walk away with after they've had an interaction with your organization? So, what was the process like? What were their emotions during that? Were they frustrated? Did it seem seamless? Sometimes people walk away with a great experience and just go, oh, that was so easy. But there's so much work in the background to make sure it's frictionless. An employee experience is just that experience of going to work, and it's very similar. And the methodologies, my starting point was customer experience, and that was because I really wanted to melt away the whole idea that you needed to spend 25 grand on market research to understand what your customers want. I wanted people to feel like they didn't need to send out a 50 question survey to get a pulse read on what their customers think. Actually, if you jump on the phone and organize a 20-minute chat, you can ask some really powerful open-ended questions that will give you ideas to improve your business. It'll give you ideas on new services to provide. It'll give you ideas of reducing the friction points. So, for example, I worked in an accounting firm, just spoke to eight of their clients, and a lot came through of like, I just don't want a shopping list via email at tax time of all the stuff that you already have. Pick up the phone. And so like that is a huge improvement on the customer experience, because they were all getting frustrated with that. So it's just sometimes I think going back to basics and taking a step back. And I think we're all I'm guilty myself of overcomplicating things. And it really is just that human element of understanding. And the same goes with, obviously with COVID, there's just been such a an outcry of retention problems and how do you keep people happy in their roles. But it's the same process. You go, where are the friction points in the employee experience? So what's stopping you from getting your work done every day? Do you feel supported? And these all apply to customer or employee. It's just kind of mapping that out. And that's how I've kind of tackled both of those. They're very, it's all just human experience. And to add to that now, I mean, there's so many X's now. There's and then there's UX, which is user experience. So you get into, if it's a digital product, what's the user experience like? Well, that's the same thing as customer experience. Actually, that's the same thing as employee experience. And then and now I think a few months ago, there's the experience of leadership. So during COVID, leaders were particularly burnt out because they felt like they were telling all the time and not being able to actually help their team flourish. It was all like, we go, go, go. And so leaders are getting burnt out. So now there's the experience of leadership. What does that look like? And how do they, how does it all intertwine? And the fact is, leaders, employee experience and customer experience, they're all interrelated. If you've got happy workers and happy staff, they will be more likely to deliver a good customer experience. In order to make your employees happy, you need leaders to be experiencing a really positive environment, and you need them to have the energy to uplift and empower their employees as well. So I've kind of found
it can get quite complex quite quickly when all these acronyms come in and you hear the latest buzzword on the street and
true.
All right. So we obviously know that design thinking is a huge part in your approach, and we do give a bit of an explanation right at the beginning, but we'd love to hear in your words how you would define design thinking.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, I'll lead with, the technical 5-step process, and let's see how that goes down. So
I love a process. So,
yeah, and you'll soon realize probably why I stopped doing this. But so the first step is empathize. Empathy is just being empathetic to your subject. So that could be your employee or that could be your customer. Let's just use those two examples. However, it's empathy, but it's also curiosity. So you've got to have some kind of connection there and an understanding. So you're almost going in and having conversations to really find out, okay, what is it that is helping or hindering you right now, and uncovering that. And then you go back and then you go, okay, we've empathized. Now we want to define what's the problem that we want to solve, because often you have those kind of conversations, and that's the research component. You have that and you go, okay, well, wow, we've got a lot of things to tackle. Where do we start? So then it's defining what's the one thing or the two or three things that we need to solve in order to get a good outcome. What's the problem that we're trying to solve? And then you go into step 3, which is ideation. Oh gosh, the word ideation. So with a lot of small businesses and even not-for-profits that I work with, I won't even bring up that term. I'll just say it's a creative thinking workshop, or it's just an ideas workshop, because ideation, a lot of people just go, what is that? It's just literally getting in a room and putting out our ideas in a way that's really productive and efficient with Post-it notes. And then prioritizing those. So you go, okay, now we've got the ideation, and then the next step is prototype, and that is the rough and ready. How can we either describe or put this in front of someone to test if what our 1 or 2 or 3 ideas that we've created are going to work. The idea is you do it as rough as ready as possible. It's a sketch on a piece of paper. It might be a landing page. It might be a dummy poster. It might be something made of cardboard. But the idea is to make it rough and ready, which is in marketing land. You don't do that ever. Like, it's all about perfection in marketing land. So that's always a challenge. But the idea is you want honest feedback. And so if it's perfect and it looks like a real product, people are less likely to be able to cognitively go, this wouldn't work for me. They'll more likely just go go with, yeah, this looks great, you'll get positive results. So the idea is, you haven't put too much work into it, so they feel like they will help you by criticizing it. And that's the test process. So it's the prototype, something rough and ready, and then getting that in immediate feedback. So that's the 5-step process. However, it's not linear. It never works like that. Not one project I've ever worked on goes from, okay, let's start with research, let's prototype and test. It's gone back and forth in the middle between, really defining and ideating, and sometimes back and forth again, because you might define the problem and then talk to 2 or 3 other people and go, actually, that's not what I meant at all. You might have to go back and empathize again and talk to the customer or the employee and go, is this what you meant by this? Or actually, no, that's not my biggest pain point. It's that, I can't even connect to the internet. Like that's, oh, okay, right. So, and I had that with one of my, I did a project with a insurance builder. So, they were a software company for insurance builders, and so they had an app that insurance builders would go out to site. So, for instance, if you've had a storm and your roof needs complete repairing, these builders come out. They contact within 30 minutes. They need to be in contact with the insurance company in order to get the job. However, they go out on site, try to connect, take photos, and lodge it with the insurance company, and it would take them 20 minutes to log in. Now they've only got 10 minutes to get the job, so it puts them under immense pressure. And they're also, they're out on the road, so every area is different with connection, etc. So they were very busy designing all these wonderful features. However, the real pain point and the gripe was that I need to connect faster. Like that was, so it really came down to the bare bones and the skeleton of the software. So all these things that we can get. I always get a little worried when people go straight into an ideation if they haven't defined what the biggest problem is first, because then you just get a heck of a lot of ideas and a lot of overwhelm. So that's kind of the 5-step process. How I would define it is just helping gain real clarity on the problem you're trying to solve, and not wasting too much time and energy trying to solve that problem without going, you don't want to go through to the whole end, launch a product, and then realize you've solved the wrong problem or you've solved it for the wrong market. So it's really, again, going back to the small things, following the steps and going, are we right here or are we wrong, and having those open conversations.
Mm-hmm.
It brings, I guess, a more human element to design rather than, being the let's launch, let's make it pretty, let's make it perfect, and investing, $100,000 on something that you're not quite certain if it's going to sell yet. You want it to, involve the people you're going to sell to.
Yeah. Do you feel like it really feels like it stems from just asking the right questions, asking the right people, asking the right questions?
Yes.
Because the right questions seem to be quite powerful in developing that product. Yeah,
absolutely. It's I did a project with West Farmers, again, a software shoot off called Decipher, and they had software to help farmers with precision agriculture. And I won't go into too much of that. I had to learn a heck of a lot of stuff within a couple of weeks, but again, it's really defining how is this working, and having those open conversations, figuring out, have we solved the right problem here? In that example, it was, when I say it's a startup, it was a $15 million startup that West Farmers had invested in. And I spoke to 8 farmers, and we recognised that it was a subscription, and we recognised they're not going to subscribe to this. They've actually got an agronomist on site. And so an agronomist is kind of like a GP that comes to your farm and gives you a script for fertilizer. Yep. Along with that, they already have the software. So then the farmer never needed to actually subscribe. So that they've quickly pivoted to the mining industry, actually, and it was a phenomenal project to work on, to see the transition of them going, actually, wrong market, but we have the software that can be adapted to this market, and we might only need 5 clients rather than 500,000. So it was super powerful stuff. And it was 8 conversations with 8 farmers, and I was asking them questions like, what keeps you up at night? What's your biggest worry? When you get up, what does a day in your life look like? And they were still some of my favorite conversations, like, just honest, salt of the earth people who would just, I felt like I knew their life story at the end of it, but these were, 30-minute conversations, and they were super powerful. And it was, that really highlighted, and that was early on in Live Legends. I think it was in my I'd kind of hit a year at that stage. And that's where was my moment of like, this stuff is powerful if more organizations just were vulnerable and stopped trying to think that they know all the solutions to clients' problems, but actually just really understand the problem in some real depth.
Yep.
So that was a great project. It was super fun.
How interesting. I think pivoting from farmers to mining and, being able to see that opportunity. Yeah. Amazing.
I mean, they had spent a lot of time, a really switched on, super intelligent team. Were doing all features and user experience. They'd done a bit of user experience stuff, but it was all on, they were testing features. So I kind of went in and did the broader questions, which was just understanding, what problem are we actually solving, and do we need to define the market? But what eventuated was something awesome, really.
Yeah. So do you feel that in your experience, the implementation of design thinking isn't as broad as what you'd like it to be?
Do you know what? I actually think that I've done some conversations with CEOs lately around, I tried to put a word on design thinking for myself. I was like, if there was one word, just one word, instead of 5 stages, what is it? And I came down to collaboration. That was the key thing. So it's collaboration between, teams and customers, but again, with leaders, and leaders having this collaborative approach. And so I've seen it in the not-for-profit sector that a lot of leaders are naturally, especially good leaders, who their team really admire and feel supported by. They seem naturally collaborative, and they go through this process. And sometimes I think I see business leaders and business owners as well, kind of intuitively touching on the steps in design thinking, and not having it formally laid out. And that's okay. That's all right. Because I think it is about being just really in tune with your people, really in tune with your customers, and that's going to lead you to success. So sometimes these formalized processes can be a little bit just that too much, too daunting. And so intuitively, I think it does make sense, and I see people touching on it. I also see people that over-engineer and then make the mistakes as well. So, and that's when you're not listening to your intuition.
That's really cool. I feel like everyone needs design thinking or implemented in their business, because
I feel like it's going to save a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? And a lot of time, I mean, so the IDEO, who basically, they now run free courses on design thinking. So IDEO.com, I think it is. And, they're doing at Stanford University, they're doing things of like how to using design thinking to plan out your career and your life, like life choices, which is kind of cool, because you go, all right, so instead of investing 4 years in a university degree and I get to the end and realize I don't want to be a lawyer, maybe we look at 3 alternate pathways and what is it that I want to do, and using design thinking for yourself, which is super interesting. So, but yeah, it can be implied in so many different ways.
Wow. And so design thinking the foundation to your clarity and alignment blueprint?
Yeah. It's I do the clarity and alignment blueprint because I think every time I go into an organization, the teams are at different points. So they might be highly sophisticated and know all of these theories of agile and design thinking, and they're implementing. And so RAC, for example, I've worked with their teams, their design teams, and they're, such a great, hugely talented team. And so for them, clarity might be a different form. They've got a whole panel of 70,000 customers that they can dial up at any time and ask questions to. And so their clarity, kind of what they need, might be different from a not-for-profit, for example, who all they've done is sent out a survey, or maybe they haven't even done a survey of their clients and their services. So really the clarity and alignment, clarity is around the problem you're trying to solve, and that could be internal or external. And then the alignment is getting everyone on the same page. So making sure everyone has agreed that this is the problem we're trying to solve. And that's just coming together. That's that whole just collaborative approach, rather than going, this is what we need to do. I as a consultant, will never go in thinking I have the solutions, but I have the framework to let the team get the solutions. And that's how I work.
That's cool. And so can you run us through the 3 steps of your blueprint, just so that we get an idea?
Yeah. So first of all, I think it's just understanding the problem. Then it's really that engagement piece, that collaborative approach. But then you want to solve it. That third piece is, what's the outcome? What's that physical, tangible thing that we want to take away? So, for example, one of the projects I did at RAC, it was they wanted all the insurance teams to have a one sole roadmap. So pet insurance, car insurance, and home insurance are all completely separate teams and departments. And so they all had their own roadmaps of like, okay, these are the things we want to improve, new services, ideas. But they'd never had one in its entirety, one across all of the insurance products. So it was all about just collaborating, getting those teams to collaborate and align. And then what does that look like? Well, okay, we want a roadmap to be delivered. And then after that became prototypes. But for that particular process, it was just, doing the member research, getting clear on what we needed to do, defining what's got potential, what hasn't got potential, and then what's that physical outcome.
That's really cool.
I feel like it's quite interesting, like bringing those departments together, because I remember I worked in an engineering business, and those silos and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you ever experience sort of like mindset, especially in leaders, some mindset battles or hurdles that you have to overcome?
100%. Everyone. Yeah, it's mindset and politics. There's,
the office politics.
Yeah, and it's this interpersonal skills. Sometimes you come across a manager who struggles to really let go of having all the answers and struggles letting their team come up with ideas. I get that less frequently now. I feel like, management styles are changing. And often because I'm a third party going in, they recognize I can't act like that in this frame up, in this way of delivering. So they kind of have to take a step back. But yeah, absolutely. So I remember when I started, I did some growth mindset workshops, which was just about helping teams. And that, the thing is, I start these conversations with clients and they're like, oh, wow, yeah, that mindset. That's definitely something that we need to address before we even get to that point. And so now I find I'm constantly taking that step back. So in order to anyone to deliver something using design thinking, they need to be able to collaborate effectively and listen to each other. So then I designed the collaboration project, which is a 6-week course on helping teams instead of running one-way meetings all the time, how do you use every meeting as an idea generation opportunity and a problem-solving activity? And that just ignites people. You can see that, they've been asked a question and they're expected to help rather than just kind of sit back and take turns around the table or whatever that might look like. So that was one of the best things I think I've delivered so far, is just helping teams collaborate. And now I'm at that point of, okay, they can collaborate and they will speak up, but sometimes they won't. And sometimes you have to just continuously ask for ideas, but sometimes that won't work either because they don't feel safe. And potentially that's a leadership or management issue somewhere along the line, that they're not feeling safe enough to give you their ideas. Therefore, they will never speak up. Or maybe you just shut them down way too many times in their first year of working there, and now they're burnt and they won't speak up anymore. So it has. I feel like in order to get to design thinking, there's a few of those barriers that sometimes teams need to push through and have that support. So now I'm doing a lot on that, fearless organization with Amy Edmondson and talking around, how do you create a safe environment where people feel free, one, to be themselves, two, to criticize ideas respectfully, and three, come up with the ideas and actually speak up. And equal voice is such a huge thing. Google spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to figure out what makes a highly high performing team. So they've got a heap of money. They need their team performing, and they tried figuring out what character attributes it were. Was it personality? Was it diversity? They explored all of this stuff, and it all came back to one very simple element, and that was, in a meeting, is there one person speaking, or does everyone have equal voice? How many people feel like they can speak, or if not speak, is there a workshop activity where they can put their ideas on a Post-it note? Or that's what it came down to. It was all equal voice, and psychological safety kind of comes into that. It's all human element. It really is. It really is.
Oh, I feel like we could have like a whole nother episode on
it's all teaming, and it's all really. I strongly feel that the successful business is relationships. It all comes. My husband is a small business owner, and he's scaled his business, and he's constantly saying that it's all about relationships, about the people that work for you, and relationships externally as well.
Oh, I feel there's some very valuable tips and lessons right there, people. All right, so you've mentioned, obviously we've spoken a lot about design thinking. You mentioned a bit about being lean and agile.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I believe all of this is super relevant to our audience. What are some simple and actionable ways that business owners can apply design thinking to their work? And not necessarily like the whole kit and caboodle, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm doing a really fun project at the moment, which I'm loving. It's with a very young team for a glass supplier. Mm-hmm. And the manager is very cognizant that, yes, they've had a time of it with the demand in WA at the moment is insane. But eventually the market will shift, and he's recognizing, okay, we really need to understand how we can do things better. So my first step, I would say, is just really get into the head of your customer and who you're trying to serve, and don't overcomplicate it. Before you hit send on a survey, just pause and think, instead of taking 4 hours to design that survey, maybe just schedule in for yourself and get 2 other team members to schedule in 2 calls, 20 minutes, and chat to your customer and ask questions like, how have you found the service? Is there anything we could be doing better? Is there any other experiences that we could learn, other positive experiences that you've had in the industry that we could learn from? And those questions, just 3 questions, just start with 3, can unlock some really great ideas, and it can help you improve your business and service delivery. just start small, and then all of a sudden then you'll have some ideas to work with, and it can be a quick fix. Pick your low-hanging fruit. Maybe pick 1 or 2 wins just to gain confidence that you can make a change. And instead of sending that email in your process, go, okay, we're going to use that as a phone call instead. And then in 3 weeks' time, we're going to ask our clients how they found that experience. Was that any better? And just do that feedback loop. So once you've spoken to customers, come back to them. Just don't have it as a one and done. Come back to them, go, we can't do this. You're not going to be able to solve all the problems. There's only some within your realm. But that's all I could say. Just start with that. And I naturally think people's problem-solving abilities kick in, and you'll start using the design thinking process potentially without even knowing it.
That's cool. And so on the flip side, with the employee experience, the EX side,
yes, yeah.
We could say that hiring costs are felt more sharply for small to medium business owners than, say, bigger companies. And so obviously employee retention is really vital. So last year you held a webinar on retaining talent without expensive rewards and incentives. Could you share a few gems with the audience today on how to do that?
Yeah. And look, anyone who is experiencing that, who's small to medium business, the big end of town are feeling it too. I can guarantee you. I went in to do an employee experience project with a large not-for-profit, and they had, I think it was 47% turnover, which is significant, and a real struggle to then keep those positions filled while training. And anyway, it was just that kind of revolving door. I would say they're not alone in that challenge. Again, getting some gems from my husband. He's like, hire before you need them, and hire for value. Hire people that just because they don't have a marketing degree doesn't mean they can't do marketing. It's the person, it's their knowledge. Really harness their strengths. I would say that. And then in terms of improving your employee experience, one thing I have learnt, there's definitely, I think our default, like a survey with employee experience, our default is a pay rise, or not necessarily a pay rise, but a bonus or an incentive. Like if you stay for 12 months, you get 3K or Christmas hamper, whatever that might look like. Instead, I would look at the pain points of your current team and just try and remove those, because that's why they're leaving. So if you reduce the pain points of what they're experiencing day to day, and you give them hope, sometimes you don't need to solve the problem tomorrow. Just involve them in the process. Give them hope that things are getting better and that they have a voice in the organisation. That will keep people with you. Guaranteed. So you don't need to default to that kind of cash bonus all the time. And that potentially that can cripple a business as well, because really we know all the research states that the cash lasts for about 48 hours. I mean, not necessarily you don't go to the casino, but the cash bubble, or that feeling that you get when you get that bonus, it is very short. It's very short term. And if you have to go back and you're experiencing the same pain points, you kind of go, oh, okay. And then also, if you do stay on that extra, you expect it next year. And if the cash bonus doesn't come, people bounce. So it's all around, how do you improve that experience of day-to-day work? What do people feel like when they walk out the door at 4 or 5 o'clock? And how can you improve the way they feel?
And so what do you think are some areas of opportunity that are low-hanging fruit for SME business owners?
Low-hanging fruit, I would say just improving experience for customers, but involve your team to do that. Don't try and do it all yourself. Empower them to try and uncover some problems, and what you're doing there is you're sharpening two sides of the sword. You're listening to your customers and trying to figure out their problems, but you're also empowering your team to be more connected to your customers. And that human element of picking up the phone and understanding that people need something really motivates teams to go, oh, okay, I'm not just here to clock in and clock out. I'm actually, what I do is could potentially help someone and improve the service.
Ooh, so equally on the customer experience side, what are some easy ways that business owners can elevate their customer experience with keeping cost and feasibility in mind?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So start with your calls.
Yep.
Then normally what happens is you'll have your pain points, you'll have some understanding. I would then map, like just Google customer journey mapping. And really all that is just, you can do it in so many low fidelity ways. You can get some butcher paper and put it up on a wall if you've got a war room, or you can just use Post-it notes, or you can use online software like Miro, etc. And there's templates in there. It takes literally, I could do one in 2 minutes of like just a template of how to map out your customer journey. Do fun things like smiley face, really red face, map out their emotions along the way.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find, okay, shit, well, we might have to make a change here at this red face. Everyone hits this barrier. But I would really look at mapping that out and then picking out, okay, this is a long-term fix that's going to take us at least 1 to 2 years to fix. Maybe we need to put in a CRM or automate our communications, our emails, or whatever that might be. So look for the low fidelity ways of doing that. Okay, in the meantime, can we just all agree that when we hit this point in the customer journey that we give them a confirmation via email or we text or whatever that might be? So customer journey mapping gives you that big picture view. And the biggest question I get when people start doing customer journey mapping is, well, we've got different types of customers. We've got say an accounting firm, we've got our retirees, they're just drawing down, so they've got a very different mindset to, say, a business owner, and they've got a different mindset again to someone who just wants their tax done and never wants to look at it again. So I would say pick your most common or your biggest customer profile and map that one out first. Just start with one, because if you start trying to do all the different ones, you'll find you just get drowned in too much data and too many conversations. And so just pick one and just go from there and just start making those really tiny little tweaks. And that will cost you nothing but time and a lot of tea and coffee, maybe some cupcakes.
Oh, that's cool. So as we start to wrap up, we'd love to hear about what's getting you excited about in your industry right now, or within industries that you're working with.
I'm uncovering more and more just this change in leadership. And back when I was working, it was people getting promoted and fostering the way that they had been managed, and it was a lot of tell. And that's not enjoyable for anybody. However, it does come down to that command and control type scenario. So what really excites me is, these leaders that are doing away with that now. And they're really allowing their teams in on the ideas and in on the strategy and helping them do that. What excites me is this kind of, for myself personally, is this morphing of really going, okay, yeah, design thinking is a framework. The framework won't always work because of the human elements, and that's the equal voice, and that's the confidence with collaboration and the tools to do that. So it really is these sets of skills that are coming through. And I know there's a lot of talk on AI, and a lot of people are really excited about that. And I think it's positive because it will help us to all work faster. However, it'll still all come back to that human element of how we all work together and connectedness. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of organizations really trying to make that change. You can't always do it straight away and quickly, but there's definitely some ways that you can upskill your team and give them the capabilities to, really influence everyone that works around them.
That's cool. And so are there any big goals for Live by Design for the remaining 2023, heading into 2024? Anything exciting as projects? Tell us.
I've got my understanding customer needs project. So as I mentioned before, with a glass provider, and I've noticed that construction kind of industry is starting to look at that, understanding customer needs, which is phenomenal. So hopefully more of that for 2024. The other thing is I'm really trying to focus on helping teams remove those friction points of collaboration. So with the collaboration project, I have that kind of in the background running, which I'll run again next year. And then between now and the end of the year, I can't believe it's like 12 weeks.
I know.
So in the lead up to that, it's I'm really trying to focus on psychological safety, that whole equal voice, just getting teams to feel comfortable to speak up, because once they are, the innovative ideas will come. But it's tricky because teams you can work within your own team and be completely comfortable with who you are and speaking up. And then it might only take one other individual, or you have to work with another team and you completely shut down. So I always come from a place of, I've worked in both environments, of one super positive and feeling, where I could speak up at any time. And people used to call me a sharpshooter. I was like, that's not me. Like, but we all got along super well. And then I've been in the toxic work environment, and I shut down. I was like two completely different individuals, chalk and cheese. Like, it was just, and my performance also represented that. Unfortunately, I could do great things, and all of a sudden I felt confident to do nothing, and that's not where you want your team to be. So I really want to focus on that equal voice, because everything flows on from there. Collaboration flows on from there. Innovation flows on from there, design thinking, and all of those elements. If you can get people to really voice their ideas and be connected to customers and connected to their teams, it helps their work life, it helps their performance, it helps the organisation, helps the people they serve in terms of the customers. But I always think, if you go home at the end of the day and you feel like you're contributing and you feel like you're connected, you're improving people's lives as well as their work life.
Yeah, it definitely has like a flow-on effect. And it's really important, I think, internally, externally, and like you said about leaders as well, it's all connected, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
So just to finish off, how can our audience work with you and find you?
Oh, find me. I'm on LinkedIn. Up there. I'm very easily accessible on LinkedIn, and then I've also got my website. But just LinkedIn, I would say. I've got Live by Design profile, but then I've also got my Olivia O'Connor. Just a private message is always welcome. I love coffee catch-ups with any business owners and leaders, because it's valued both ways. I'm happy to give advice, and any tidbits that I can offer or frameworks, I will certainly do that. But I also get an understanding of the problems business owners are facing. So it's valuable for me. So I always say to anyone, don't hesitate to flick that message. And I think I've got my phone number on the website as well, or flick that text, because, there's value both ways. It doesn't matter if there's work there or not. It's value always.
That's awesome. I love that philosophy. Yeah. No, it's good. Value is the best way, right? So.
Absolutely. Yeah, just open, honest conversations, and I always try and help as much as I can. And if the problem suits, then great. But I also have a huge network as well, where if I'm not the right person, I won't, I'll say you're probably better off going down this approach or having an expert in this. But if you're looking for kind of team improvement, performance, and customer centricity, more than happy to help.
Oh,
love it. Community, connection.
Absolutely. Yes. Genuine and authentic.
Yes.
No pitch
we're all
free.
about.
Pitch free.
There you go. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I just want to learn more about design thinking.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Audio. It's free. You could both do it together. You do a project using design thinking, and you could use it. You could use it for this. Like it honestly, it's awesome.
I'm gonna definitely check it out. And I feel like your interview was one of the best now.
Oh, really?
I love that one. That was a great interview. Thank you so much.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, because I think it's a really different way of thinking. Like, I feel like people don't really look at it often, design thinking, and then you've used some great examples to say that it's there. It's just facilitating that. So one of my favorites. Yay! Yeah. So I will definitely check out that website, IDEO.
Yeah. So there's IDEO, and then there's IDEO U, and IDEO U is about $600 per course, but you can get the whole design thinking, run the whole course, because it's kind of like a social enterprise. So they have IDEO that's all free, and then they have IDEO U that's their paid kind of academy.
I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, nice. Yay. Whenever I talk to like any marketers, I'm like, oh gosh, just do it. Just like it's, a 6-week course. Instead of being so scared of customers, like in marketing, I used to be so afraid of picking up the phone and talking to a client, because one, it was going to be more work for me because they'd give me problems to solve. But two, I thought they would, I'd get complaints around how crap we are. And I used to always think that would be then my fault. So I never picked up the phone. But once I started doing it, I was like, as a marketer, it can give you that next level of understanding that you can literally go to the boardroom with, it's not, instead of kind of hiding behind agencies and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, it's really cool. It reminds me, I've done touched on design thinking, because obviously doing graphic design.
Yeah.
But I read this book, The Design of Everyday Things. It's by John Norman. Have you read that?
No, I haven't.
It's basically, he talks about the design of a door, of everyday things, and how we perceive it and the human behavior of the design of it. It's actually really fascinating. So
I love this simple one. When I used to there's a Centre of Entrepreneurial Research Institute, CERI, runs out in Netherlands as part of a shoot off. It's near UWA. And they do a lot of courses for new business. And it was started as anyone that was starting a medical business, but now it's anyone, dog washing business, whatever it is. And you do this course. So I used to present there every 3 months. And the way I described design thinking was I just put the one slide up of the Heinz tomato sauce ketchup bottle, what it traditionally looked like, and then how it's now flipped up with the squeeze bottle upside down. And it's that's design, because you're looking at how people, instead of I noticed that people were putting the sauce upside down in the fridge to get the last little
bit. Yeah.
Old glass bottles. And so that's design, right? We keep thinking, and experience design's the exact same thing. It's just let's just tweak something a little bit and see how do we use it, and then how can we redesign it better? It's very cool.
Yeah, I love it. I'm gonna go and do my searching.
do my searching.
But, so that was great. So Jess, you want to finish
my final little spiel? Well, again, look, thank you so much. It's been amazing, and I honestly feel like this is now my favorite interview, so don't tell anyone else. What we'll be doing, we've got a few more interviews this week, and I think a few more next week, and then we'll be collate everything. We'll go into editing mode. That'll probably take us about a couple of months. But what we'll do over that time period, we'll keep you up to date as we move through the phases, just so you know where we're going with everything. And then towards the end of the year, we'll provide you with a media pack. And it will have outtakes and copy and
you're doing so well. Everything's so professional. I've been doing this and you do the questions and everything. like fly by the seat of my pants, and I've only done 3, and then I had one where Zoom were doing an update and Zoom didn't work, and so the CEO I was interviewing couldn't log. Anyway, you're just very professional.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I don't think I'd be anywhere near as organised.
Yeah. We've got, I think, a good group. So you would have seen that there's like 4 of us. So Jess is very strong on systems, automation, website. She thinks differently.
Process.
Yeah, process. And I'm like, we could do this.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we've got Took in the background who does like copywriting, but she's also got a background in marketing. So she's thinks very different again.
Yeah.
And then we've got Angela, who's very creative, even with like illustrations, and then that's a different spin again. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's what you need, like different perspectives. And
100%. We've been very, very lucky. So to all come together.
Yeah, you're doing well.
Yeah, we want business owners to thrive and succeed. It's a bit like what you're talking about, value at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, the amount of times Jess and I have heard like horror stories. We don't want that for people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know, and I know I touch on the market research stuff, and I kind of hit these big market researchers, but honestly, I've seen them go into organizations and charge them $25,000, which is a quarter for not-for-profit, a quarter of their yearly marketing budget.
Yeah.
And given them kind of nothing, like, oh, this is what your brand means, and this. I'm like, well, what can they do with that? Like,
what's the next step? Like, what's the action?
And the next step comes another $50,000 of like, oh, we can help you workshop that. And I'm like, oh, that's just. Yeah. It's just not right. Your people know. Just ask your people. They'll be able to. Yeah. Anyway, I won't go on my rant, but I try not to bash market research, like formal market research. But honestly, it's just so. Yeah, sometimes it's just so nonsensical.
Well, I feel like we've both seen it in various areas of business, and when you're first starting out, even a couple of years in now, and you're hearing all these things you should be doing, and the astronomical prices that you should be paying, and where you've laid out some amazing tips that people can just like pick up a phone and have a phone call, guys.
That's it. Just be brave, take a big deep breath, and dial. That's it.
Powerful. Yeah. So that's what our heart is. So
love it.
Sharing knowledge.
That's
I feel like that's all that it comes down to.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's been great. It's been a very nice alignment with you both.
Oh, fantastic. That's what we want to hear.
Yeah.
Well, we'll produce all that information. So you'll get all that, and that means it's just super easy for you to be able to, tell everyone about your amazing article, and we'll have it out on YouTube. We'll have the website. So you're going to be plastered everywhere.
Oh, nice.
And then we are looking to launch in March.
Yeah.
So we'll tell you a little about the launch runway and what that'll look like. And you'll see us drive the promotion early next year, which is not that far away.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh.
So and hopefully we'll have a live launch in Perth so we can party.
Oh, yay!
Yeah, that would be spectacular. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. It's been amazing.
All right. And I'll, feel free to keep in contact. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, love to.
Yeah, definitely.
All right.
All right, then. See you later.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.